Hey everybody, sorry for being a few minutes late. And I'm in a hotel room, as you can, I guess, probably see. And we had people cleaning up, so didn't want random people running behind me while I was trying to talk to you guys. So here we go. Today is Friday the 24th of June. It's just after 3 p.m. Estonian time, 2 p.m. here in Malta, where I'm currently sitting. And this is called an AMA. You ask, I answer. Let's go. I see a lot of questions already. No need for any small talk at the beginning. Let's start answering some questions. Philippe coming in, not really a question, but a statement I'm going to throw out there anyway, because, why not? So his favorite hour of the week. I met Philippe for the first time in person last week at our summer days right outside of Tallinn. And it was cool, man. Philippe was DJing till the wee hours of the morning. Myself and our new operations guy, Santiago, were the first ones on the dance floor. Actually, Santiago was first, so I have to tip my hat to Santiago. Eventually, we got everybody else out there. I think there's a video floating around that's not too embarrassing. Maybe you guys have seen it already. All right, jumping into the first question from Steven. Kevin, is it possible for CoinMetro to send funds from one user to another since we are all KYC? So when it comes to crypto, yes, you can actually request those transfers currently through support. There is a fee. There will be a fee attached to those transfers. We haven't yet set out the entire fee schedule. The reason why we haven't is because we're working on a way to do that right from your account. Think of PayPal. Well, you'll be able to go in and transfer to an email address. If that person has a CoinMetro account, they'll get the crypto right away. If they don't, or if they're not KYC'd, or if they don't have an account, they would have to go through the KYC process to claim those funds. So yes, there is a way. When it comes to fiat, that's going to have to be managed by our licensed fiat entity, which is Digital Fiat, our EMI licensed entity. However, that's not going to be ready till end of Q3, into Q4. So there you go. Hike the mic. Hey, Kevin, how would CoinMetro acquire new customers for XCM when there is nothing left to stake? They miss out on the utility almost completely. Somebody running behind me. Good to see you back. Thanks, Hike the mic. Appreciate that. Good to be back. I really like doing these things, and I'm sorry I couldn't have done one every week. I'm going to try to get back to that no matter where I am in the world. It'd be cool if I could do these via mobile, but I think at least at some point last year, some of the platforms weren't allowing that. Maybe because of the amount of followers we had, I don't know. We've obviously grown our followers and our base, so maybe I can do it now. So the initial, I believe there was an initial, and may still be in place, an initial limit of 100 million staked. Now, right now, I think there's 93 million. So there's 7 million still left for grabs. Obviously, for big XCM holders, that's not maybe the biggest sum of XCM. I don't mean necessarily for one person, but if we take the biggest holders and combine them, it might not be that big of a percentage of their overall holdings. However, most people are not going to hold 1 million XCM or 500,000 XCM. And so there's still a lot of room there. And I do think, I don't think over time we will lift that limit. The reason why that limit was there in the first place is the same reason why the 500,000 stake limit was there. And that's simply because, we wanted to make sure we didn't hit Treasury that hard when it comes to paying out XCM rewards. Now, while we haven't yet gotten to the point where we've monetized XCM entirely, we're building some of the foundation in which we can do that. And there will be news early next week about the first real big step in that direction. So I think, I'm hoping by the end of this year, in the next 6 months, we will monetize XCM enough where it won't matter how much someone stakes, and it won't matter how much an individual stakes either. And so we're going down that path. It's taken longer than we thought. A lot of things took longer than we thought. If you've been around CoinMetro for more than a day or two or a month or a week or a year, sometimes things take longer than we initially planned. But this AMA and kind of there's my daughter in the background, in case anybody was wondering. I guess she forgot I was on camera. I was the back of her head, at least. You can say hi to the back of Niels's head, if you like. Anyway, so, a lot of things have taken longer. That's just how stuff generally works out sometimes. But we are a better company every day, every week, every month, every year. And we're getting very close now to being able to monetize XCM. So, hey, Michael. Hey, Kev, how you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Thanks. There's my daughter's front of her head now, in case you wanted to see the front of her head. I guess she forgot again that I'm on camera. And there's her head in the background, and she's not moving. So I guess she's okay with that. Moving on to the next question. How is CoinMetro able to keep on hiring new people while Coinbase and other big exchanges have to lay off 10% of their workforce? Are you hiring ex-Coinbase employees? Well, I've been tweeting at ex-Coinbase employees for a few days in a row, and they've been tweeting back. So we haven't necessarily hired one yet. And that doesn't mean every Coinbase employee would be hired by CoinMetro, one, because of the sheer numbers, but also two, doesn't mean they will be exactly what we're looking for, right? At the end of the day, though, yes, we are. How are we hiring new people? Well, Coinbase, I'm assuming, expanded a lot on their workforce, expecting maybe 2022 to be 2021, or Q4 of 2021 being Q1 to Q2 to 3, 4, and all the way through to 2022. And that just didn't happen. I also think that in many ways, they were probably spending money on R&D and other stuff and just said, well, now if we have a 2 or 3 or 4 year stretch where we're making less revenue, because probably the majority of the revenue comes from trading, and at the end of the day, we need to cut back. First place they're going to cut back is employees. For us, we have some money in the bank. While we're not making the same amount of money we made in Q4, we are still able to support our current size and can support a larger Coin Metro as well. And we know that in order to take more market share, well, we need to keep growing. And that just doesn't mean in numbers. That means, well, it doesn't just mean in revenues and profits and all those great things, but that also means in sheer numbers everywhere, meaning the amount of people and the amount of human resource we have. Without the human resource, you can't do anything. And so, yeah, maybe a bit better planning. I'll throw that out there. Why not? Got to at least have 1 point on the board. Hey, Kevin, can't comment on sound as I came before you. Okay, cool. Hopefully the sound is good. I haven't even checked. And obviously I'm using just the computer's mic. So actually, let me check settings now that you mention it, because let's see, audio settings. Yeah, I'm thinking audio is probably all right. Anyway, it's not going to get any better. So anyway, any chance to adjust the ETH XCM pair, as there is no chance to burn through the sell wall on Euro XCM with a cheaper side book? Well, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, right now it might look that way, but if you look at the amount of volumes that were done on the Euro or the ETH XCM pair, they haven't been massive. Anyway, now what I'll say, because I knew this was going to be a question, we've been debating this internally, and I kind of view this ETH XCM non-dynamic pricing, fixed pricing, easier way to say that, as kind of a release valve. So obviously there are people that were ecstatic about the price floor. Then the entire floor got eaten away because the rest of the market just went to shit. And then people thought, well, oh, now I can't get out. Now there's a major problem. This gives a little bit of a release, allows people to get out that absolutely want to get out. Those that staked, or those that don't necessarily want to get out or sell, aren't selling. And so I'm not so sure that it's the worst thing in the world. Having said that, we are having discussions of when we're going to reset that non-dynamic or fixed price. And it's more than likely going to happen relatively soon. It may happen very soon, but it's going to happen. However, up to this point, again, we've been back and forth in the company. There are pros and cons on both sides. And I know when you have an opinion, it always seems that based on someone's opinion that what someone should do, or the decision that should be made, is easy. If your opinion is that it shouldn't be there, well, then the decision is easy. If your opinion is that it should be there, again, the decision is easy. When you sit in the decision-making seat, which I guess is this one that I'm currently sitting on, I don't necessarily have an overarching opinion. What I want to do is make sure that what's best for the community. And I know that there's people out there that just simply need or want to sell. And trying to do that right now in the Euro or USD book, well, is not easy, because there's a lot of other people waiting in line. And a lot of that is simply because, well, their assets tanked. And so the only place where they still have some value, or more value than where they invested, is XCM. And thus they're trying to pull some of that value. On the other hand, obviously it adds more to the sell side of the book, because people potentially are trying to arb, not really working out too well for them, but they're buying on the ETH side, trying to sell on the Euro USD side. So like I said, it will end. It's been debated internally, and at the end of the day, it's going to end relatively soon. The last XCM burn was 57,000 XCM, and the one before was 111,000. Where are these additional XCM coming from? So somebody mentioned inside a Telegram about the swap burn. So definitely some are coming from the swap burn. We also did a burn, that 111,000 is based on a burn from swap had we started from the beginning of the year. The 57,000, I believe as well, is tied to something else from historic plus obviously the last week of XCM on swap. And we also plan obviously to add that burn to other pieces of the ecosystem. So a lot of that was historic burn. So because we wanted to do this earlier in the year, and unfortunately we didn't get around to it. So now that we did it, we retroactively did a burn. Stephen, are we working on internal P2P transfers? Hopefully Q3. Oh, that's an answer, actually. So awesome. And Deep Philippe answering questions. Maybe Philippe should just do the AMA. I could have just been outside and having a kombucha walking around the streets of Valletta. Hey Kevin, when can we expect CM to introduce a combined staking overview page? Also, when new Mars? When new Mars? I believe next week you're going to see an addition to Mars, and we're also working on additional staking programs for assets that we've recently and will list in the near future. A combined staking overview page has been discussed. I don't think that's currently on the roadmap, but there is a few changes coming to the dashboard, which I think will help you have something very similar to a staking overview page. And that is something that we will be doing, though I can't give you a date or even let you know really more or less when that may be happening. Looking at some answers from Deep Philippe, so awesome. KDA margin trading soon. Thanks for all you and the CM team do. We'd love to get all assets on margin. We were actually discussing this. I was actually discussing this with the head of product, Oliver. People have finally seen what Oliver looks like because he put a profile pic up on Telegram. If nobody noticed it, go check out Telegram. That's actually him. It's not a cartoon, a meme, or just some random dude off the street. That's actually Oliver. We actually got him to stand around for a few minutes so we could take pictures of him. And he was nice enough to comply. So yeah, we've been talking about, me and Oliver, about adding in lots of different assets into margin, but with limitations. What we don't want to do is create, basically stop out cascades for semi or very or somewhat or not so, but still illiquid assets. And so we need to be careful about not what we list, but how we list it, what kind of parameters we put around that listing. But absolutely, you will see KDA on margin relatively soon. Matthew, thanks so much for what you're doing. Well, thank you, Matthew, for coming and saying that and actually spending time with me here on a Friday. That's cool. What actually is happening with Celsius and Three Arrows? Lending a bad thing to do on a SEX, or should you only do that on a DEX? Sexy, Dexy. Okay. I don't know. It's Friday, man. My brain's a bit mush. Over leveraging in general is a bad thing to do. And that's pretty much, every time I see something like this in crypto, something like this, I think, what the fuck? Because at the end of the day, crypto is supposed to be the place that we were going to take all the bad things about traditional finance, wash them, scrub them, turn them around, get rid of them, throw them out the window, whatever, and come with this new, exciting, welcoming, fresh, clean financial ecosystem. And we just keep fucking shitting, basically just running amok and doing the same nonsense that happens in traditional finance. So here what we have in Three Arrows and probably Celsius is just a company that got a bit greedy, more than likely. Now, this is just speculation, right? Because we don't have any information, which is another reason why we all got into crypto. Transparency, right? Oh, the blockchain is all transparent. You can see everything. Yeah, well, that's true to a certain extent. Even on a DEX, it's not true to 100% because just because you can see data doesn't mean you know what it means. And now, but obviously in something centralized, like a centralized exchange or a centralized platform, we do all kinds of stuff that people can't see. And so we're doing the exact same thing that happened in traditional finance. We have no transparency, we have bad communication, and we're over leveraging ourselves as if we didn't know that crypto's super volatile and every once in a while likes to shit the bed and then, stay at lows for months and years on end. It's kind of disheartening, to be honest. Now, this speculation could be totally wrong. Maybe, Alex Machensky was running on his treadmill in his Manhattan apartment and sprained his ankle, and his ankle bone is connected to his mouth bone and he can't talk. I don't know. I mean, there could be a couple things that could have happened. That's probably not what happened, because if I remember that song correctly, your ankle bone is not connected to your mouth bone. I don't even know if you have a mouth bone. You probably don't. In fact, I don't think that's a thing. At the end of the day, Three Arrows was over leveraged. Celsius seems to have been over leveraged, possibly from staking, taking out loans on the staked access and restaking. Then you have an issue where you have the depegging of ST-ETH and all these other things, and that compiles the situation. And then obviously once somebody in a centralized platform, or even a decentralized one for that matter, but more in a centralized one, when people panic, you get a run on the bank scenario, right? People start running in and taking withdrawals. Now, if you think about regulation when it comes to banks are required to hold somewhere around, I think it's 5 to 8% globally, somewhere in there, of all assets they have on reserve, i.e. if you have 100 billion in your bank, you need to have 5 to 7 billion in cash so that people can withdraw it. Now, that may seem like a really small sum, but I can tell you from experience, even in the FX markets, anytime there was a run on the bank scenario, 5% usually covered it. In fact, most of the time it was way less. you end up having lots more withdrawals than you normally have, which normally you probably need 0.5% to 1% of your overall AUM liquid somewhere. And so I think probably what happened is they were running probably something of that similar ideal, because usually that works. But market tanks, sentiment goes to shit. Three arrows is about to collapse. ST the pegs. All these things happen at once, and you end up having issues. These things are done in traditional finance all the time. Now, I'm not saying that makes them good. I'm not saying that makes them bad. All I'm saying is that at the end of the day, they happen. And most of these guys behind these two companies come from the traditional world. They just simply didn't manage the risk too well. Wannabe, how many institutional and or big players like hedge funds investors do you have in CM, if any? Well, institutional big players like hedge funds as investors. If you mean into equity, we don't have any VCs or, let's say, hedge funds as investors into CoinMetro. We do have people with lots of investments and big companies. Some of the biggest entities in Mexico, we have connections to them through some of our investors. We have some connections to large companies in Asia. We have some connection to large companies in the US. But specifically hedge funds and institution, we don't have any. That is what the next round is for. That's the smart money round where we will pull in these type of investors. Any progress on the Mexican office and CoinMetro's expansion into the UAE? It's just funny. I don't know. People can't sit still for half an hour, so they're crawling on the ground and opening doors. Either that or we have ghosts. I mean, Malta might be full of ghosts. I don't know. Anybody that lives here maybe can tell us a ghost story at some point. But so the Mexican office is near completion. I think literally about a week to go, and that's only because we're waiting on some desks to come in, and I think there might be some carpeting that still needs to be done. I will be in Mexico at the end of July and do a nice video tour. We'll do an AMA from the Mexican office. It'll be pretty cool. It'll go operational, I think, sometime between mid to end of July. As far as the expansion in the UAE, waiting on the regulator to come back after we redlined their MOU. I expect them to come back hopefully next week. Hopefully we'll sign next week, and then I will be in the UAE between the 2nd and 3rd week of July, and I'll have an update for you guys at that point. Michael asked about BlockFi as well, but basically the same scenario. What do you think? Where do you think the market is going? Are you buying the dip already? So I've bought a little bit of very selective assets, but I still think, look, market psychology, when big players want to really fuck with you, really fuck with you, there's a very true, tested way of fucking with the retail investor, right? So I'm not going to show you a chart. I could, but then I got to push buttons and it's Friday. So let's just assume whatever this remote is, I think it's for curtains or something. Let's just assume this is the market, right? And the market's, kind of going up, whatever. Huge dive, literally looks like this, right? Bing. Everybody's panicking, they're selling, whatever. Then you get this. And everybody goes, oh, I think that's accumulation. Everything looks okay. You might have a few dips and some kind of intermediate highs. And then one more time. Why? Because one, they are accumulating. They want you to think, they're distributing. They want you to think that there's some accumulation already. It's not. There's distribution. There's distribution, not necessarily from the big guys, but distribution still from the small guys, just less selling, right? And then they give you one final push, big sell, push you down another 20, 30, 35, 40%, just to get you into that point that you're absolutely in misery and you think this is the end of the world. Then you get the accumulation phase, then you pop. So I think we might be seeing one more leg down. That doesn't mean we will. Don't wait. If you think you want to buy now, look, DCAing is the way that most people, the majority of people, make money in stocks, crypto, whatever. You buy as much as you can on a weekly, monthly, whatever basis, whether that's $10, 50 euros, 1,000, 100,000, whatever. And you don't worry about price, because at the end of the day, your assumption is that over time, the market will be valued higher than it is now. Your assumption is that crypto is worth much more than the current market cap. And over time, that market cap is going to grow higher. If you try to become a statistician, you try to become a trader, and you try to become, you're probably not going to be. I'm not saying that's because it's hard to be a trader. I'm not saying you need to be super intelligent or whatever. You don't, in fact. But at the end of the day, it is an acquired skill, and it takes time to master human emotion. And so to take the emotion out, you just buy. You find the assets you like. You buy some every now and again. You'll pay a lot for some of those assets, very little for others, in the middle for others. Your dollar cost average price, your average price over time will be really nice. And years from now, when you look back, you say it was a great decision. That's really the way most people should handle their accounts. So no, I haven't gone in. I have some money put aside. and for ETH, for BTC, and for other assets, and they haven't hit my price targets yet. Now, I also have price targets on the upper end of the current crash, because if I'm wrong and it doesn't dip again, I will wait for confirmation and buy in at that point. In a VM, you said you raised the price for right before the market tanked. Was good timing on CM's part. Do you still hold this opinion? Absolutely. I don't know why that would change unless the market was now 4 times higher than it was after the dip. So yeah, absolutely. When local all deposits for deposit withdrawals. Hey, Bin Chicken. So working on that. Our girl Svetlana is working on that. We're in touch with a few of our providers and a couple new providers trying to get localized odd deposits rolled out. I think it's probably going to happen towards Q4 simply because these things take time, and we've been told that it might take a few months to go through due diligence. Considering that, we're an evil crypto business, and whatever, we got to send them like our grandmother's blood type and proof that 4-leaf clovers grow in our backyard, and that could take some time to process. Anybody who thinks CoinMetro's KYC process is a pain, yeah, let me put you through an institutional onboarding process as a crypto provider, as a crypto exchange. Yeah, you'll change your tune then. I'll tell you that. Do you see Intellicent by Blockchain Doug? Super awesome tool. Blockchain Doug. No, I haven't. When I read Blockchain Doug, I immediately thought about the Rugrats. You guys ever see that cartoon? I used to watch that with my 2 other daughters. But no, I don't. Blockchain Doug. Is that Doug from Cadena? Blockchain Doug? I'm sure there's more than one Doug in blockchain, but that's the only one I can think of. What token coin are you most bullish on that's not listed at CoinMetro yet? That's a decent question. I've had a few conversations recently, now that we're kind of ramping up this listing thing, with a few companies, but I'm not at a point right now where I can answer that question, unfortunately. Simply because I have a lot of other stuff on my plate, and not that I don't like to, but unfortunately I haven't been able to do the research that I would have done 2-3 years ago when I was asked this question. But we do have a couple Slack channels, and then a couple back and forth, I think, email threads and Telegram chats, groups, channels, something, with a few different companies that are bringing assets to the table that I think are quite interesting. Ask me this again next week, and let's see if I can have an answer for you. But right now, not enough information yet to give you one. You think euro will slip below $1, or will it rebound? Hey, Bill. Well, the last time the euro was below $1, wow, when was that? The early 2000s, I think we dipped to parity or close to it. But when the euro was launched, it was obviously sub $1. But it's quite some time ago. I don't know. You know why? Because when I look at the macro picture, I'm not sure that in real terms, the U.S. has a stronger outlook than Europe. However, in times of crisis, people go to the dollar. That's just been historically accurate, right? Oh shit, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. Let me buy some USD. It has been chanted in the streets of almost every continent of the world when, something's going wrong. Now, in modern times, obviously, we have something called Bitcoin, and that's taken some of that liquidity, but nowhere near a big chunk. So right now, I would say no. I don't think we're going to see that happen. I think the euro would be supported by most of the Europe governments, and collectively, the amount of capital available in Europe is larger than is in the U.S. Now, obviously, if we talk about capital you can print, well, depends on whose printers are faster. But I don't necessarily see that happening. But euro is going to have a rough patch, that's for sure, especially because it's more affected with what's happening in Ukraine, and that is going to weigh down pretty heavily on the economy. But at the end of the day, the more that the euro economy is kind of hurting, that's going to also hurt the U.S. economy. And the U.S. economy has its own problems, that's for sure. I don't even want to list those problems because I only have another 37 minutes max. So how's the mental health, Kevin? Hope you're doing well. Stressful job. You have so many people relying on you. Hey, Doc Logical. I don't know. I think my mental health's all right. If, baldness is any sign of mental health, then maybe I have a problem. I definitely am getting balder. I think I lost maybe 4 or 5 hairs just today alone. So I'll have to keep a track of that. But I think my mental health is fine. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that generally thinks about stuff like that. Most days for me are good ones, I don't know if I could define happiness, which may seem weird, but at the end of the day, I don't think I've ever really felt depressed or, I haven't stood on any ledges lately. So I guess Maybe I could do that in the metaverse. I wonder if there's like suicide in the metaverse. Is that a thing? Like if you just want to see what it would be like? That's pretty morbid. I don't know why I brought that up. But anyway, you're the one that brought up mental health. So I guess we can blame that on you, Doc Logical. But yeah, I honestly don't think my job's that stressful. Younger me, absolutely. Older me has kind of figured out a few things about life, I think. At least I think I have. Sometimes just thinking you have is enough, you know? If you think you know what you're doing, you might actually know what you're doing. Not in all circumstances, though. If I thought I knew how to be a neuroscientist, I probably still wouldn't be one, I guess. Vector Space said their governance token will be listed on CoinMetro. Well, actually, I got a long email today from the guys at Vector Space asking us if we'd want to list the token, but we need to look into that. But we've made no commitments as of yet. We just got some information. I think me and Oliver got that information. So I'm going to have a chat with Oliver probably early next week, and we'll see where that thing goes. There are some people who opened XCM positions on margin at 60 cents and now unable to close their trades. Would CM help them to close their positions if the situation goes on for several months? Michael. Well, I would say let's tackle that once we get, if we get there. What I would say about XCM positions on margin in general, this is going to be a kind of a tough pill to swallow, but I like to be open and transparent. Plus, I'm always open to somebody else's opinions. So hopefully you're open to mine. Opinions are like assholes, everybody. Everybody's got one, but here comes mine. Ready? Let me take a sip of water because it's gonna take a few minutes. So before the floor was enacted, and after the floor was enacted, there were discussions. And I'm not saying everybody heard them, but they were public discussions in our TG group as well as here on the AMA, asking what was the risk about the floor. And I said, well, at the end of the day, there's always the risk that if the company goes out of business, well, there's probably not going to be any value left in XCM. That's always a risk, regardless of the floor or not. The second risk, and probably the most prevalent risk, would have been no liquidity at the floor price. There was many discussions on that. We're all adults here. I think most people here, even though CoinMetro likes to adhere to regulation and we want to do things the right way, I think most people would do a happy dance if the world had no more regulation and people could just do what they want. Because I think most people believe that you should be in charge of your own finances. However, in situations like this, and this is why regulation exists, many people come back and say, well, I should be compensated because, the risk is too great, or I don't like the risk. Well, part of being an adult and part of being able to manage your own finances is to understand the risk. If you don't understand the risk and still take the jump, you can't blame anyone for taking the jump. If you understood the risk and the risk changed due to some unseen circumstances from, the cliff you jumped off on in this weird analogy, then you could blame the cliff. Like if the cliff got shorter for some reason or got higher as you were running to jump off, it went from 30 feet to 1,000 feet and you said, I didn't know the risk. Well, you'd be right. But if the cliff's still 30 feet and you jump off it, you know what the risk is. So, first of all, I don't think this is going to last months. We are in, doing everything we can, and we will continue to do stuff. And that includes stuff. I love that word. And we'll continue to do things to make sure that book fills out. That includes talking to some of our investors, getting more liquidity inside of the book, talking to market makers, and as well as bringing on even our own market making team, starting with one person that will use funds from both investors and CoinMetro to market make inside the XCM book. All this stuff is moving forward, not to mention additional XCM tokenomics that will help reduce, just like increasing the staking limit, reduce the sell side of the book by a few €100,000. Now, all those things combined, I don't think this is going to last for several months. I also think once crypto has found either a true bottom or now a range or whatever, you will start to see more liquidity coming back in the market in general. Now, if it gets to the point where someone, people need to exit, and we may decide to do something to either buy back that XCM, et cetera. What I would say is, though, before you open up any position on margin, understand that risk is yours. Now, we may decide to help our clients because it's something we like to do, if it's possible, if it's feasible. But that risk should have been clear to anyone jumping in on margin. And if it wasn't, again, that's not necessarily the company's fault. Because when you take on a financial responsibility, you should never take it on unless you know all the risks involved. And if you don't, you should ask. And if you're misled, that's a different story. Did you resume with CADEX? Any collab with Lago Stable? I've had a discussion with Cadena and CADEX. This is though specifically really about listing some K assets, which isn't really in collaboration with CADEX. Somebody's knocking on the door. Give me a second while I have to answer it. All right, sorry about that. A little intermission. I think I answered the question already, but no, so far. And at Lago stablecoin, no, at least not at this time. Hi, Kevin. Will staking be renewed for KDA? And would love to see CADEX listed on CoinMetro. So for CADEX, again, right now our kind of collaboration with CADEX is paused. We still want to have some conversations about what took place with their sale and their private sale and their public sale, and we will do that. As far as staking for KDA, that really falls on Cadena entirely. We don't have a Cadena treasury from which we can pay KDA rewards. Cadena needs to relaunch their bonding program for us to do that. And right now, I don't have any information on that. I will try to get some information on that when I have a conversation with Cadena. But so far, no more information for you guys on that, unfortunately. What is the reason you are traveling to Malta? Are you trying to dig up some dirt about Binance from back in the days? Nah, that's too easy. That's an easy one, man. They left here because, and then Malta got gray listed, and I guarantee it has partial to do with Binance. No, it has nothing to do with that. Actually, I have a friend that lives here in Malta that actually owns a hotel I'm sitting in, and he invited us to a costume party. So I might post some pictures of myself dressed in costume for everybody to make fun of me and meme later on tonight or tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. If you're not in Telegram, or we should try to get you in Discord, but I'm not in Discord. But if you're not in Discord or Telegram, you better get in there because that's where the photos will be posted if I post any of them. When will peer-to-peer? Yep, that's coming. Should be coming before the end of the quarter, actually, for crypto, at least initially. BizDev news. Yeah, don't really have any BizDev news for you at the moment, though there is some stuff brewing. Hit me up next week and I'll give you some more BizDev news. But there's definitely stuff brewing. There's stuff brewing from Consensus. There's a few conversations I had there that could lead to some cool BizDev stuff that you would never even see or realize, but will provide revenue back to CoinMetro. How is the current market sentiment affecting CoinMetro next funding round? Well, funding round was going to be September, October this year. I believe we're going to push it out to Q1, Q2 next year, simply because of sentiment. But that's okay because it gives us time to continue building towards our goals, and it's only going to make that round easier for us to fill out. How many staff do you have now? Do you have enough runway to get through the next year or so? We have 81 staff, I believe, 81, 82, something like that. Maybe slightly higher than that now. Just hired a few more people. I saw some new faces before I left to Malta. And yes, we have runway for more than a year currently. What do you think of the day, June 21st, 2022? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to think of June 21st, 2022. So got to send me some more insightful message about that so I can answer that question. Why isn't a price floor a bad idea? It's like a double negative or something. So why is it a good idea is what you're asking me. Okay. So first I'll state what the price floor actually is. Actually, somebody put a really nice comment on Telegram about equities in private markets, which was a cool one, talking about how there's price floors there all the time, that there's no liquidity on until the company goes public. Now, that's obviously not why we did it, but I thought it was a pretty insightful post. So if you saw it, and whoever wrote that one, thumbs up to you. So when it comes to price floors, we have a utility token that derives its utility and actually gives you to, and its utility helps in many ways to power the CoinMetro ecosystem. That is a product. In fact, I would say it's the most important product CoinMetro has, XCM. For that reason, we can price that product however we deem fit. And the access to a secondary market is just an additional perk, right? There's no promise that someone else is going to want to buy that XCM from you. But the perk is that there is a market available, something that you don't usually find on utility type assets like airline points or things of that nature, or the points your supermarket gives you when you buy a kilo or a pound of apples. Here we decided, based on the fact that we had raised equity taking XCM as a payment, and also in kind of in line with our current company valuation, that XCM price floor should be placed where it is now, 60 cents. If you've been an XCM supporter, then we believe that you should be rewarded for that support. Part of the way we can reward you if you're an XCM holder is to make sure that XCM retains a value. Now, there's a lot that we do to make sure XCM retains a value. Pretty much everything we do at CoinMetro goes to making sure XCM retains a value. But this mechanical price floor is another very strong way to make sure that XCM retains a value. Now, the timing of the price floor happened to be right before a market crash, pretty brutal one. Had we not done that, there was already a floor at 12 cents. We would more than likely be sitting at that 12-cent floor, probably in the same position. I think people, when they make an assumption that more people aren't buying, because people are buying at 60 cents, but that more people aren't buying at 60 cents, it's because they don't feel XCM is worth 60 cents. I don't think that's the case. I think people see an empty book, and that creates a bit more fear in the market. People don't really understand how books work, and they just assume that there's no demand to buy XCM, which is not true. And at 12 cents, I don't think it would make any difference, because if a floor is there, it's a floor. If you understand what the floor is and how it works, it's a floor. If we had no floor, I think we would be, in the single digits, if not even lower, simply because of the amount of fear that hit the market and the amount of capitulation we saw across multiple assets, people losing money left, right, and center, and needing to find anywhere that they can regain some of that capital. So the fact that we did this right before that happened, I think, was an amazing timing. Yes, it led to a bit of 2 million euros or a bit more of liquidity being taken out of the XCM book. And it's led to a situation where there's much more on the sell side in terms of pressure than there is on the buy side currently. But that is always going to be temporary. These types of things aren't going to last forever. And while it's temporary, it may be a bit of a burden for people who wished or need to sell, absolutely need to sell. And that's why this fixed price on ETH, even though it wasn't by design, I think has been a little bit of a benefit to many people. Now, it's also probably added a bit to the sell side on the USD and Euro books. But again, that's not going to last forever either. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea why a price floor is not a bad idea. Any teaser on what we can look forward to for the remainder of the CM summer campaign? Listings, tokenomics, and some other cool stuff. I think that's probably enough. The whole reason for the campaign, guys, is because you don't know. In fact, I don't even know what's coming next specifically. Hey, Kevin, do you feel like you've made it in your professional life as CEO of CoinMetro? Progress during the last year was insane. Won't sell my XCM anytime soon. Hey, Lucas. I think in my professional life, I think in many ways I already had made it before CoinMetro. It really, I guess it depends on how that's defined. If it's defined by, a dollar, euro, pound value, like how much money I have more money now than I had before. But I was living on a beach in Mexico and doing okay before CoinMetro. So I can't say that I had a bad life. In many ways, my life is different now. And in many ways, it's better. I guess in probably some ways it's worse. But that's the way life works. For me now, I think it's kind of the progression you see in one's life when you go from kind of a kid to a teenager to a young adult to an adult, then becoming like a father or a mother. You take on all these different responsibilities. It changes you in many ways. And I think professional lives are very similar, right? You go through this wave of kind of you're working maybe in some lower level, and you're working for someone else, but you take pride in it. Then you move up maybe to some management level, and then eventually maybe you're doing something for yourself, and all that stuff takes on different obligations, different responsibilities. And I think at this point in my life, though I never thought I would do this, I think at this point in my life, a lot of it now is about education. And that's not just, and when I say education, I do not mean by any stretch of the imagination, let's say the normal education system. But I think helping people understand how stuff works and giving people some pointers based on the kind of trips and falls I've had in my own life has become more and more important to me. And so if I think about my professional life, I think at the end of the day, if I'm able to pass on some of the stuff that I've learned, and somebody, 1, 2, 3, 5 people actually listen, and they're able to better their own lives, listening to me, mumble along for a few hours about things that have happened to me, I think that to me is more important about kind of reaching now a professional goal. Not that I couldn't do more stuff in my personal life, or I don't still have ambitions. I think as a person, you always need to have ambitions and goals, and I still have them. And some of them I'll never reach, and that's fine. You need to have stretch goals as well, things that are very, very difficult to reach, and maybe you get there, maybe you don't. But then you have other goals that are more obtainable. So in many ways, I would say I kind of feel like maybe I've made it. There are things that I would not want. I never and still don't want to be famous. I don't envy someone like, let's say, CZ, for example, that everybody knows who he is and knows his face. I would never want to be that guy, to be honest, even if it was for a good reason. I don't necessarily envy people who are like Instagram stars or something. That's definitely something I don't want in my life. I think, for me, yeah, it's about kind of spreading the word, trying to may sound corny, it may sound, a little kind of, I don't know, way too cliche, but trying to make the world a better place, I think, is an important goal in the way that I can. I'm not going to clean the oceans. I'm not going to, stop the polar ice caps from melting. I'm not going to go into the jungle and rescue snakes out of rivers. That's not how I'm going to make the world a better place. But I think I can do my part in just a little bit of education so that people know what money is, how it works, and how to put it to how to use it to your own advantage to better your own life and give you some more power to be able to do what you want. What is your favorite stable coin besides XCM? Haha, I see what you're doing there, Shady. I don't really have a favorite stable coin. In fact, I'm still not the biggest fan of stable coins. If I had to pick one, it's in terms of structure, it's probably Paxos. If I had to choose one just in terms of usability and probably the fact that it more than likely isn't going to depeg, it would maybe be USDC. Now that Bitcoins and NFTs are dead, will CoinMetro pivot into stocks, commodities, and currency trading? My wife's boyfriend. That's a confusing one. How would the guy know to write on his avatar, my wife's boyfriend? Why would he put it in that? Why would he put it? Why do you say my wife? Why wouldn't it be that other dude's wife's boyfriend? It's pretty confusing, man. That avatar is confusing. It's making my brain hurt. Not avatar, but your username is confusing. I think you should change it to like the dude's wife's husband that I'm banging or something like that. I don't know. Change it. It's just confusing, and I totally forgot what your question was. So yeah, Bitcoin isn't dead. NFTs in their form, I hope, die at some point very soon because, well, for the most part, they're fucking stupid. I like art. As I get older, I started to like art more and more. I'm an artsy guy, I guess, at this point. Most NFTs aren't art. I think there are definitely really cool stuff that can be done with NFTs, and some companies are doing cool things, but most NFTs are garbage. But NFTs themselves aren't dead, and they won't die because non-fungibles can be used for a lot of really interesting and actual usable stuff with lots of utility. And Bitcoin's definitely not dead. And we're not going to pivot into stocks, commodities, and currency trading. There's already too many people doing that, and we're not going to add major value there. I can't pull out now. I have a XCM kid. I can't pull out now. I have an XCM kid. Okay. Stand-up shorts. Okay. I think I get where you're going with that. The joke was kind of corny. Maybe I delivered it bad. Let me try it again. I can't pull out now. I have an XCM kid. Still, it doesn't really work. You know why? Because what were you, not pulling out for 9 months? Or maybe XCM kids you have like in a couple seconds. I don't know how that works. I don't know how XCM kids work, but you got to refine that, man. That material is kind of weak. For the September raise, will CM look for a marquee investor to lead the round? Yes. A person group that is investor fund. So yes, we will look for a lead investor, not necessarily somebody like Pompliano. But if Pompliano wants to come in and lead that wouldn't really be I wouldn't consider that a lead, but yes, maybe a marquee investor. But we will be looking for a lead investor, absolutely. But it'll probably end up being a fund. But yeah, if Pompliano wants to come in, definitely we can have a chat, me and Pomp. Sure, why not? In fact, I'm wearing some shoes because of Pomp's recommendation right now. They're actually pretty comfortable. They're called Atoms, ATOMS.com. The XCM Euro, XCM USD has no buyers. I think we already talked about this, but an XCM ETH is selling at a big discount to the floor price. As XCM ETH has the same floor price, would that mean that there is zero demand for XCM? No, because there's still people buying on the Euro book, and I haven't really checked the USD book, but I imagine there's some volume there as well. So no, that's not what it means. And again, this is kind of looked at as a release valve, but at the end of the day, in the very near future, it's going to be closed. KDA showing strength during these hard times. Do you agree? Yeah, in compared to some other assets, absolutely. It's showing some strength. I would agree. What are your thoughts on Saylor camping for regulation on virtually everything except Bitcoin? I think he's really turning into baby now that his portfolio is insanely down. Well, I already said that Saylor was a fucking loon. He is a loon. Grady's buying Bitcoin, and that's kind of good for the industry in some really weird way. But the guy is a fucking loon. He says really weird shit all the time. I don't really understand why I know why he gets airtime. He gets airtime because, well, he's bought a ton of Bitcoin and he says weird shit. So, I mean, almost any of us can say weird shit, but unfortunately we haven't bought, a billion Bitcoin. I think it goes to show that he doesn't really give a shit about, the crypto community in general. He obviously doesn't care about what Bitcoin stood for in its original white paper, which is trying to make things more equal, which is trying to give people opportunity, which is trying to create some type of global, currency that can be used to subjugate and get around all the different laws and rules that governments put in place to try and keep the poor people poor. Obviously, Saylor doesn't give a shit about those people, because if he did, he wouldn't be trying to make Bitcoin the only use case for crypto, which is crazy, because if it was, let's be honest with each other, just me and you, and what utility does Bitcoin have other than potentially store of value and potentially a way for like Venezuelans not to get burnt on 40 million% inflation, potentially. And I don't even know if that's a utility, because it's not really a utility, to be honest. But so, yeah, I always thought he was a loon. I never liked Saylor, and I still don't like him. And this kind of makes me like him less. Hey, Ryan, what's up, man? Thanks for coming. You have Coin Metro as 2 words with a capital M, bro. Oh, man, let me send you a brand book. Let me get a brand book out to you. I got to get a brand book. Somebody, please. Cody, man, get a brand book out to Ryan. He's just, he's destroying my Friday vibe, man. Just destroying it. Anyway, man, nice to see you. When are we going to hook up for another interview? What's going on? Not your cheese, not your loin. I have no idea what that means. Just wanted to come by and show you all some love. Thanks, man. Throwing some love back at you. Appreciate it. Ah, man, come on, man. Stop. You're going to make me blush. A blushing bald man is not something you want to see on a Friday or a Saturday, for that matter. Maybe a Sunday. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So we already answered this one 17 times. So we're going to move on, because on the 18th, I think it's going to get crazy. Keeping it real, man. I'm trying to keep it real. Sometimes I got to keep a little bit of the real back, because I don't want to get canceled. I don't know. Well, canceled sounds like there's so many people watching me that it would make a difference. But, I mean, canceled as in like cancel culture, not like YouTube's going to cancel me in literal terms. Any talk with Parsec on IQ protocol? Nope. Haven't talked to them in a few months. Definitely going to talk to them, though. I saw the Coinbase listing, so that's cool. And we all knew that was coming, but glad to see that it happened. I don't think Parsec is finished. Nope. I opted into XCM for CM stock swap. I still don't have stock, even though I don't have the tokens any longer. When will the swap be completed? Hey, Braidsley, how are you? So I talked to our legal department on, I'm going to say it was Wednesday or Thursday. Wednesday, must have been Wednesday, because the day before I left here to Malta. So I talked to them on Wednesday. They have a document drafted. They were waiting on some information on a formula to make sure that the amount of equity was calculated correctly inside of the template. That's already been taken care of. Now we're just waiting for the documents to be all drafted, and that's currently in procession. I think next week we're going to start to send those out. It may take till the week after that to get everyone's out to them, but they're in progress. The MOU you signed, even though it is not a share transfer agreement, once funds are moved, it becomes legally binding. So we know we've taken a bit longer than we should have on this, but just rest assured it is being worked on. And I believe next week we're going to have some news. And again, maybe one more week to get everything finalized and finished and over the line for everyone. Is EncryptGen dead? My wife's boyfriend again. Still confused, man. Still confused. I don't think it's dead. No, I think, there are tokens that I would consider almost entirely utilitarian, meaning there are tokens that are utility tokens, but that are speculated on. And there are reasons for those tokens to have volumes. And for EncryptGen, obviously it is almost pure utilitarian in my mind. And I said that even when we listed it. However, as the platform grows, I assume over time they're going to have more use cases. They have a staking program that I'm talking to David about next week finally, and that'd be the CEO of EncryptGen. So as more utility comes and the platform gets bigger, then there is a reason for people to speculate on the token price. And so, no, I don't think EncryptGen is dead. I think it's a bit of a slow crawl, but it's a slow crawl because it's a real business, and they're not necessarily, first focused on token growth. They're first focused on the business. Is that me? So I got to pay for some airtime? Sure. What is that, like 5 XCM? I don't know. Just, just let me know. Send over an invoice. I got you back, man. I got you back. Don't worry. Sailor's trying to be the new John McAfee in terms of insanity. Nah, because John McAfee was funny insane. Sailor is weird insane. So two different things, two different types of insanity. Fun insane is great, man. You can have a beer with fun insane. You do not want to see weird insane drunk because it don't get less weird, basically. Automatic investments from bank account coming soon. Yep, that's definitely something coming soon. We now have the ability to do that in Europe and I believe the UK. It's something that we were discussing just about 2 weeks ago in the business. So yes, something we're looking to do to have some type of DCA product from bank accounts and from cards as well. Yeah. And to be honest, Sailor trying to be the Federal Reserve of Bitcoin. Yeah, but Federal Reserve, again, you wouldn't want to get those guys drunk either because they'd just be boring as shit. But, they're not crazy. I mean, they're boring and, not the most let's think outside of the box type of guys. But, yeah. €1 party in Talon HQ. I don't know if we're going to be able to fit everybody in the Talon HQ. Maybe we'll start there, do like some bar hopping, and then end up all drunk near a reservoir or something, peeing in the city water. I don't know. But yeah, we might start at the office, but we're not going to be able to fit everybody in there for sure. Hey, Kevin, any plans to extend ability to buy for us Canadians? Yep. Actually, CAD, we just signed 2 agreements for local Canadian deposits. Now it's just about integration. So very shortly, you guys are going to have another option. And then we can start making Canadian jokes. Sorry. I'll tell you a quick story about Canada. I lived in Canada for a bit of time. I got into I stopped short at a green light because I thought it was red. Don't ask me why. Somebody hit me from the back. Obviously my fault. I had a really bad day. I got out of the car. I must have looked like a crazy person because I was just so upset with my day, and this just made it worse. And the dude that hit me, which is obviously, again, my fault, said, "Hey, it looks like that there's no damage here. I'm sorry." He apologized for me causing him to get into an accident. So I love Canada. Canada's on my list. I like Canadians. And that's why we've been trying to get Cat on the platform for that guy and every other Canadian that apologizes when literally somebody punches them in the face, which is an amazing culture trait, to be honest, because around the world, you don't see that. Any plans with base hunting like with CV Reflect? That would depend on the base hunting manager. So, no, not currently. Can you explain pairing assets with Bitcoin like ETH BTC pairs are on every exchange? When BTC crashes, it brings ETH down with it on every exchange. Is that true? No. Well, they're majors, right? That's like if in currencies you have euro, USD, pound, etc., and Japanese yen, and they all end up getting paired together because they're majors. That means they usually have more liquidity. You want to have pairs with liquidity, and ETH BTC is going to have a lot of liquidity because it's taking advantage of both ETH and BTC in terms of the amount of liquidity that's available. So when BTC crashes, actually the BTC ETH pair would go up because ETH would be worth more against BTC unless ETH crashes more than BTC. So no, I don't think one necessarily drives the other one down. Remember, it's not that these are intrinsically connected. They're basically taking a price and giving an indicative value to a pairing. So no, I don't think. I think if you removed ETH BTC pairs, you'd actually lose a lot of liquidity on both of those assets, which actually might make them more volatile. What's your favorite books that you can recommend? Fuck, man, I haven't read a book in so long. I feel like an asshole for saying that. I just talked about education, and now I'm telling you I don't read. I don't even know how to put those two things together. They're just like a complete oxymoron. So yeah, I can't, unfortunately, because I don't. The last time I read Trading for Dummies. That's not the last book I read, but I remember reading that back in like 1999 or something. It was a horrible book, but I read it. So no, there is a book. I think Tom Williams is the guy that wrote it way back in the day about volume spread analysis. I think it was VSA. That was the book that changed my trading career. So look that one up. I can't remember the exact name of it. Somebody on here had asked me for it before and actually found it. It's Tom Williams, Master of the Markets, maybe something like that. That's a good book. Hey there. Glad to meet you. I'll definitely be back. Need a lot of education. Well, thank you, Sada. I go into your store every once in a while and buy socks. Can you spoiler us on some amazing new CM update coming? Well, there's a lot of awesome shit coming. I hope that's enough of a spoiler. I don't want to spoil it too much. Come on. I'd have nothing to say next week. What would I do here next week? Would I just sit here with the CoinMetro shirt on and stare at the screen? You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. How does the entire market move when BTC crashes? Well, that's just people not understanding that there shouldn't be. It's like a self-fulfilled prophecy, right? BTC crashes. People that don't understand markets are like, oh my God, BTC's falling. Everything else is going to fall. I'm going to sell my, Dogecoin, which you probably should anyway. If you own some Dogecoin, you should sell that shit anyway. But it's basically just kind of classic market sentiment that drives everything else to crash when Bitcoin crashes. There's no real reason it should correlate, other than the fact that you can consider, well, Bitcoin owning 60, 70% of the market means that when Bitcoin goes down, sentiment is already down. So it's kind of, again, things are probably going to fall, but only because people will start selling other assets because they see Bitcoin crash. I think as we start to see more education come into this market, people understand that BTC is one thing, ETH is another. Utility tokens should be entirely outside of that scope. Why? Because they have value, or they derive value from a specific platform, from a specific product, etc. So unless that product or platform is doing poorly, why would that specific asset fall in price? What you can also correlate is that BTC crashes, people lose money, they need to get money from somewhere else, so they sell other things. And so there's always going to be a somewhat of a correlation between prices, but it's really there only because people think it should be there. And again, majority retail traders don't think like institutionals. And then institutionals try to actually mimic retail and just go on the opposite side. So they kind of go, what would retail do in this situation? Oh, they're probably going to sell ETH. Well, let's buy some then, essentially. Want to become famous? Buy followers, primes, and viewers. Oh, I know. Actually, I said I don't want to become famous. You must have misunderstood me, bot. Is that a bot? It's got to be a bot, right? I don't know. Are you able to use margins while staked XCM as collateral? That is a goal. That is a goal. That won't be there day one, but that absolutely is a goal. I talked about this on Telegram, trifecta, which is like staking, margin, and loans all happening with that staked XCM. Fill in your answer to your own questions since there aren't any questions left. Awesome. I think I got to the last question. We're 56 minutes in. I'm supposed to do these things for half an hour, but I missed 2 of them. So you're welcome. You're welcome. Anyway, thank you, everybody. I really do appreciate it. We're going to end here. Thank you so much for all the great questions. Thank you for sticking around and hearing my ridiculous answers. And I hope to see you here next week. Next week, I'll be back in our talent offices, so that'll be cool. Week after that, I think I'm going to be in Italy. So I don't know where that AMA is going to come from, but we're going to make it happen. I'm going to try not to miss any more of these things unless I absolutely have to. It is going to be the weekend. Spend time with friends and family. If you can't do it physically, do it virtually. If you got to do it over Zoom, you got to do it over Google Meets. Whenever you're going to do it, make sure you tell everybody that the cure for any modern ailment. You know how they used to have those snake oil salesman things, little carts? You got to get yourself one of those, go down the street, wherever you live, Cobblestone Road, ring a little bell, and just sell them, bottles of XCM. I don't know exactly how you're going to bottle XCM. We do have a 4-head beer. So maybe you could give them 4-head beer, when they buy the XCM. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too far outside the box on this one, but have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody. I don't know if you want to look at charts this weekend or not. I'm probably going to end up looking at charts. I can't help it. Maybe not charts, prices for sure. I always look at prices. I'm probably looking at prices right now, even though I'm not looking at prices because there's another Kevin in another dimension right now staring at his phone. Thanks, everybody. See you here next Friday. Catch me on Telegram at Kevin Murcko. Catch me on Twitter at Kevin Murcko. Tweet me, DM me, message me, tag me, do whatever you want. I'll try to answer your questions. And be on the lookout for crazy Kevin costume pictures later on this evening. Cheers.